who's actually going to get the most out of a high-end 15.6-inch gaming notebook, and who would be better off putting that money toward a desktop or a more modest laptop. If you're wondering whether the NIMO 15.6-inch IPS FHD gaming laptop lives up to its headline specs or if it's just another overpriced slab, stick around. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the hesitation most buyers feel. You're looking at a machine that packs a Ryzen 7 8745HS, 64GB of DDR5 RAM and a Radeon 780M GPU, all for a price that's definitely higher than a mid-range laptop but lower than a comparable desktop build. The first question is whether you really need that much RAM and that CPU boost clock in a portable form. For a casual player who mostly does indie titles or esports games at 1080p, you'll probably never tap the extra memory or the 4.9 GHz burst speed. On the other hand, if you're the type who streams while you game, runs multiple editing suites, or wants to future-proof a machine that can handle the next wave of ray-traced titles without swapping out parts, the specs start to make sense. The NIMO's design is all about upgradable, as the marketing says, and that shows up in the way the internals are laid out. The 1TB PCIe SSD is already generous for a gaming library, and the fact that the chassis actually lets you add a second drive is a nice nod to DIY-savvy buyers. Most budget gaming laptops lock you into a single storage slot, which means you end up juggling external drives. With this model you can keep your games on the fast SSD while shoving a secondary SSD or even a high-capacity HDD into the empty bay for media files. Now, let's talk real-world performance. I ran a few hours of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Cyberpunk 2077 at the laptop's native 1080p resolution with the Radeon 780M cranked to its max. The frame rates hovered around 5,560 frames per second on medium settings, and when I pushed the graphics to high, it dropped into the low 40s. What mattered more than the numbers was consistency. After about 10 minutes of continuous play, the CPU stayed near its 4.9 GHz boost, but the GPU throttled a bit as the fans kicked in louder. The fan noise was noticeable, roughly a 60 dB hum that you can definitely hear in a quiet room, but it never became a high-pitched whine that would distract you from the game. If you're okay with a little audible chatter while you're in the zone, that's a reasonable trade-off for the sustained performance you're getting. Heat is the other side of that coin. The laptop's surface stays warm to the touch, especially near the bottom edge where the cooling vents sit. Under a full-load stress test, the CPU temperature peaked around 92 C, while the GPU lingered in the high 80s. That's typical for a thin 15-inch chassis with a high-power CPU, but it does mean you should avoid laying the laptop flat on a soft surface for long gaming sessions. A lap desk or a small stand helps channel airflow and keeps the temperatures a touch lower, which in turn reduces fan speed and noise. Keyboard feel is often an afterthought in gaming laptop reviews, but it's a daily reality. The NIMO's Backlit keyboard uses a decent travel distance, about 1.5 mm, and the keys have a slightly tactile bump that makes typing and rapid key presses feel intentional. The red backlight is bright enough for low-light rooms without being blinding, and the inclusion of a fingerprint sensor on the side adds a quick, secure login method. If you're the kind of gamer who spends hours typing chat messages or coding between gaming breaks, the keyboard's ergonomics are a genuine plus. Battery life is where any gaming laptop meets its limits. With the 100W USB-C fast charger bundled in the box, you can juice the machine from 0 to 80% in roughly 45 minutes, which is impressive for a device that can draw 150W under load. In practice, if you're gaming on battery alone, expect about 3 to 4 hours before you start seeing performance throttling. For everyday tasks, browsing, watching videos, or light photo editing, you'll stretch closer to 6 or 7 hours, which is respectable for a 15.6-inch laptop with a high-performance CPU. Portability is a mixed bag. The chassis is thin enough to slide into most backpacks, but at around 2.3 kilograms it's not something you'll want to carry around all day without a purpose. If you travel a lot and need a machine that can double as a workstation for presentations or content creation, the weight is acceptable. If you're looking for an ultralight gaming laptop you can toss in a day bag, there are lighter alternatives, albeit with weaker CPUs and less RAM. Now, who should hit the add to cart button? If you're a serious gamer who also does video editing, 3D rendering, or runs multiple virtual machines, the 64GB of DDR5 RAM is a real differentiator. It lets you keep massive project files open while still allocating enough memory.